Rule of Three by Emily Sonia. The definition of Rule of Three states that, in the Rule of Three, you have to show three people or two people and an object as the subject. These three objects or people should form a triangle. When there are three people in the photo, they should all be looking at each other. But when there are two people and an object, both should have their eyes on the object. So you can draw a triangle from their faces to the object. The basic idea of the rule is that details in objects that are arranged or grouped in threes are more appealing, memorable, and effective than even numbered pairings. While it is easier to create symmetry by balancing elements in twos, odd numbers create harmony and force movement and visual interest. This picture is a good example of that because you can draw a triangle across the girls' faces down to the phone and back up again, which creates symmetry in the picture. This picture is also a good example of Rule of Three, although it is not as strong as the last one. It is not as strong because all of the girls are about on the same level, which makes it not easy to define an exact triangle with their faces. You can also not see what they're looking at, which takes that part of the triangle away, which makes it not as clear of a Rule of Three picture. The next two pictures are also examples of Rule of Three, although they are representing a common mistake that people make by accidentally catching their middle subject looking at the camera, which takes away from the symmetry of the photo. You can see that in both the pictures, when the middle person is looking at the camera, it makes you focus on them instead of focusing on the whole picture, which is what the Rule of Three is supposed to make you do in the first place. The next picture is a very good example of having one person's head higher than the others, and then drawing a triangle from her head down to the other two to create the symmetry. Another key part of the picture is that they are all looking at each other and showing emotion, which is a good way to show the symmetry and represent the Rule of Three. The next two pictures are bad examples of Rule of Three because even though there does happen to be three people in the picture, none of them are facing the camera, so not only can you not see their faces, but you have no idea what emotion they are feeling. Another thing wrong with these pictures is that they are all on the same level, so you're not able to draw a triangle from their faces, which is a big minus in the Rule of Three. In this picture, there is a well-defined triangle that connects all of the girls' faces, which is a good representation of the Rule of Three. The only thing that can make it better is if the faces weren't as blurry and if they had a little bit more emotion on their faces. Also, if you could see the girl on the left's face, it would make it more appealing to the eye and more symmetrical. This picture has a good show of emotion and good symmetry, although they are all on the same level, so you could not draw a triangle from their faces, which is one of the main points of the Rule of Three, which makes this picture not as good of an example of the Rule of Three. This picture clearly defines the triangle between the girls' heads and shows great symmetry. They are almost perfectly even, and it makes your eyes look at the whole picture instead of just one part. That's one of the main points of having odd numbers, such as three people in a picture, because it makes you look at the whole thing and not just each individual person. This picture is an okay representation of Rule of Three because it is not centered and the people are not looking at each other. They are all looking at the same thing, which makes it slightly Rule of Three, and there are also three people, but since you cannot draw a triangle from their faces, it does not fit the requirements, and it is not a very interesting picture because of that. The end.